Happy Tuesday. That feels like a Monday. Welcome back to another edition of the Arms Bumanlag Project, broadcasting live this evening from beautiful Amherstburg, Ontario, at the Little Heart Home Office Studios. My name is Arms. Glad to have you along for the ride as always. We hope that you had an amazing civic holiday weekend, and we're back tonight with just another phenomenal guest. I say that of all my guests, but really, the guest tonight is somebody that not only I have admired for close to 20 years, but somebody who I consider a friend and is probably one of the most genuine people that you will ever meet here in the Windsor-Essex area. So we'll welcome him in the next couple of minutes. But before we get to that, as always, we've got housekeeping to get to. If you missed last Friday, we chatted with Meredith and David Finch of the pop culture comic book world. Awesome conversation. We nerded out a bit. That episode is live on YouTube and Spotify. And then this Friday, the wonderful Melanie Coulter, Executive Director of the Windsor-Essex County Humane Society, is going to join me on the show to talk a little bit more about what's coming up at the Humane Society for 2022 and beyond. And it's an exciting time if you're an animal lover or you support animal welfare in the Windsor-Essex area. Can't wait to welcome Melanie on the show. So my guest on the program is somebody that I've looked up to for quite some time. He is synonymous with Windsor and very much Detroit radio. I grew up listening to his soulful sounds on 89X and the different iterations of the brand through the years. When I think of people who are really synonymous with new rock and alternative rock, I think of this man. He's well known in Windsor, from being a restaurateur to a club DJ to morning show host to music director. The guy's done everything, and he's got some exciting news coming up this weekend too, especially if you're looking for a great place to hang out. So I'm very honored, welcomed, and very, very, let's just say, happy to reconnect with my good friend, Mr. Greg Gnyp, who is live with us on the project. Greg, what's shaking, brother?
I'm hugging you. I'm hugging you right now. There's a hug. Oh,
we're doing hugs.
Love here. How are you, buddy?
What's going on, my man? How you been?
You know what? Every day on this side of the dirt's a good day.
It's just such a blessing to see you. It really
Thank you,
is.
My friend. And, I really truly appreciate that. And likewise.
It's been a while, right? It's been like literally, I think, I correct me. I probably say 2018 in Walkerville. I was doing some on the street stuff for the CBC when I switched over there, and I saw you. And I remember we talked in front of Vito's Pizzeria for a bit, and then we went back and forth on Facebook for a bit. And then I know I reached out to you this year, and I just wanted to. When I think of people who really are all about Windsor and really who have such interesting stories to tell, I don't think there's anybody better than you, my man. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. Well, some of the stories I'm not allowed to talk about anymore because, I could go back to prison for them. No, just, here's what I've always said about my life, especially the last 30 years. Right? I said I was this dorky kid, like, I figure skated, so I got beat up for being a figure skater. When I got to high school, my sister is 6 years older than I am, so she introduced me to like this cool punk rock and alternative music. Everybody else was listening to Kiss and stuff like that. So I'm wearing like a t-shirt that says the Ramones at CBGB's, and the guy next to me is like, dude, I'm into Kansas and Boston, and now I'm going to beat you up. And I'm like, and then all of a sudden, years later, I'm like playing basketball backstage with Perry Farrell at Lollapalooza. And I'm like, where did this dorky, nerdy guy, and then I'm like, and then all I can think about is I'm like, oh my God, how lucky am I to have done the things I've done and meet the people I've met, like you, like you. I mean, you know what? And that's what life's about, right? We kind of, hey, yeah, let's get together. We'll hang out in 2018. Well, hello. Let's dial in the pandemic. And then all of a sudden it's like, you kind of reconnect, right? And it's awesome.
I think it's just a testament to the type of person you are, though, because I think of, again, let's rewind the clock because we got so much ground to cover tonight. And certainly folks who are joining us live in the stream, if you want to talk to Gnyp, he is here on the show. He's got so much stuff to talk about from what he's doing now, which is some really cool stuff, including one big announcement that he made on Facebook that I'm pumped to let our folks who listen to the show know about. Get to that in the next little bit. But he's like a legend in the Bell Media, I guess Chum, CTV, Globe Media, whatever you want to call the conglomerate that bought up Chum, the Alan Waters family group way back when. I mean, dude, it
Yeah,
was
I
like,
mean the wait, I can't use those words on
no,
this.
no, well, it's just it went from the family owned business to the conglomerate, right? Like
Well,
that's common fact, right?
well, the way I always describe it is this way. When it was Chum, you got a Christmas present. And you'd get this like weird little card that and you knew it was stamped and it said, Merry Christmas from, thank you from the Waters family.
Yeah.
And then it became then CTV. Still got a Christmas bonus, but it was just in an envelope. And then when Bell Media took over, they went, you have to be back at work tomorrow morning. Thank you, dear employee number. It's like, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's different vibes, right? And
Yeah.
you and I talked about that many times in over the years, right? So for folks who are listening to the show, so yeah, I think a lot of folks know my work from AM 800 and CTV, but there was a glorious 3 years before I got on then A channel, where I was able to learn under the masterful wing of Mr. Greg Gnyp, among others. I will plug on the show tonight. Including the wonderful Vince Canova and Heidi Baden, but the glory days, I say, of 89X, the early 2000s. And I will say, for a young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, enthusiastic guy who wanted to get into radio with a funny-sounding name, you were the first person to give me an opportunity. I will make it known here on the show. 2003, Roseville, Michigan, Wild Woodies, Saturday night. I was told by Cal Cagno, our promotions director at the time, because I started interning at 89X just before I got hired at Bell, or then Chum. Hey, you're gonna be working with this guy named Gnyp, and he does this bar night every Saturday at Roseville's in Wild Woodies in Roseville. Do you know how to get there? And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah. I just graduated from Spec Howard, no problem. And then I'm like, the Gnyp? I'm like, this is the dude I would listen to like during the 90s, late 90s, when alternative grunge was huge, when you guys were first to spin Green Day, first to spin Weezer, first to spin, I mean, the list goes on, some
Rage
Soundgarden.
Against the Machine, all these bands.
Like, I remember the day Kurt Cobain died, and I remember driving home. I wasn't driving, but getting a ride home that day and then turning on 89X and listening to Vince Canova talk about the news about Kurt Cobain. So, like, you guys, to me, as an alternative rock fan, were like it, and you still are. Like, it's very like, these are the gods of radio. So when Cal says to me, you're going to Roseville, I remember showing up, button-down shirt, all looking professional on my first day to meet with Gnyp, right? And I walk into the bar, and it's a bar night, and there you are, spinning some tunes, having a drink, and it was just the most chill vibe. And I'm like, hi, Mr. Gnyp, my name is Arms, I'm here. And you're like, dude, you got to loosen up. We're going to have fun tonight. I remember that, right? And I remember, I would tell it to people, I'm like, I've never met, so I was like, oh my God, because you're terrified. You want to make a good impression, but you were just so chill. And the way you were just interacting with the beer reps, interacting with folks who were coming up to saying, hey, we love 89X, 89X rocks. Dude, you were like the gold standard for public appearances, in my opinion.
Thank you. But you know what? So one of my very first boss in radio, the guy that created 89X. So 89X started with Greg St. James, Lex Cooney, Lem Payne, Scott Brown, and then they brought in Jim Edelman. And so 89X started off 4 hours a night on 88.7. And I remember my first shift was an accident on the radio because the DJ, Darren Ravel, was sick. And Greg St. James said, I was interning, and he goes, listen, what the hell? You're going on. You did college radio. You're going to be on the air from 10 until 2 p.m. And I'm like, what? And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God. So, and he looked at me and he goes, I'm going to give you your shot. This is a shot. And he said, and I'm going to tell you something. Just remember this. Someday, maybe you'll become a huge star. Like, you'll be like a Dick Burton. You'll be something like that. One day, you're going to sit down on the toilet and you will smell worse than everybody that listens to you. So don't ever think you're better than them. And that's how I've lived my life for the 30 years of radio, where I'm like, it's like, you know what? How lucky, again, it's like I talk on the radio and I play music and I go to concerts and sometimes I drink beer.
It's a good deal.
How can I be like, other than just like, yay, beer, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, and you know what? And you were just a good guy. Like it was that whole thing where, I mean, once we got you out of the button down and everything like that, but you know what? You meet people and you just, I mean, I've met hundreds, maybe 1,000 interns, and some you just go, this isn't probably going to be your career. Yeah. There's probably a good chance you're going to play in this business for a while, but you're not going to. You had a drive. You had a personality.
God bless you, man.
And look at us now.
Hey, man, this is what I love about the new age, right? I mean, everything is the media, and then we can talk about that too, because I'd love to get your opinion on that. I feel like the media now is so fragmented and it's so niche. And you've got, and I want to talk about your kick-ass podcast, because you got one with our buddy Chris Uzinski that's kind of rock and rolling on a weekly basis. But I love the show.
Thank you.
I want to talk about that too, because I know how community-minded Chris is as well. But I just feel like now we can really hyper localize what we're doing for the people who may follow you and the people who are tuning in today or even tuning in down the road. Like Janice here says, "Hey, Greg,
hi Janice,
thanks for jumping on the show." But I just it's a funny dichotomy. But then I think of like, where you were for the glory days of 89X, and I want to bring up something here and see if I can bring it up on the screen here. I found this and I thought, my God, take a look at this.
Oh my God, the Express magazine,
right? And that's with you,
Windsor Star,
Brown, right? Yeah, this is what, when you guys first, like around the first launch of the station of 89X, or
that was probably so 89X started like fully in 1991. So that's probably 94, 95 ish. Like within probably the first 5 years of 89X right there.
That's awesome. I'm looking, I'm like, I have no wrinkles or gray hair. That's before.
I don't remember those days.
Different time though, right? It's a different time in radio, I think, overall. And, I mean, you can attest to this about, how everything's computerized now. But then I think you were, and correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, you were more DJs and less back selling and front selling songs. You were able to kind of maybe take more requests back then. And
when I did, so when I got hired on to do overnights with another guy by the name of David DeRoche. He was known as the D-Man. So it was Gnyp and D-Man, and we were known as the Funky Fresh Cocoa Puffs. And we would do these late night broadcasts from like Coney Island, and we'd do it from down in the shelter and all these kind of stuff. And what was fun was the program director said, you have to play the A's. The A's were it was, you had to push that, right? That was the main song you were pushing. The B's were the next in the rotation. And then we had to play the C's, which were Canadian content. And then because it was overnight, they went, play whatever you want. Every other song is just a suggestion. Bring your own CDs in. So we were almost like 100,000 watt college radio station.
That's awesome.
We had to play 5 songs an hour that we couldn't not play those. Everything else. So if you said, hey, can you play Rage Against the Machine and follow it up with Frank Sinatra? We'd go, all right, boom. It's the cutting edge of rock. New York. And it was fun. It was just so, fly by the, like I'm going to tell a story. And I mean, it's one of the funniest stories of radio I've ever done. And it was early in my career. This guy kept calling up and he's like, dude, I've got this girl over. And if you say her name and you play this song, And I'm like, well, listen, I'm working. I'm not getting any of that. I'm going to play with him for a little bit. He was calling every 10 minutes, every 10 minutes, every 10 minutes. And I ended up recording him a little bit. And then I played the little drop before the song and the girl's name. And it was like, in my head, it was the funniest thing I've ever heard. Well, he calls me up because she heard it, left his apartment, and he's like, thanks a lot. And I'm like, well, sorry. But in my head, it was funny.
You're like, sorry to do that to you, dude, but it made for a good bit. So
yeah,
that's right.
Not all radio is kind.
That's it. It's in the moment, so it's up to you, right? Hey, I wanted to say too, during as you're doing this and you're rocking the airwaves and you're able to spin some tunes and you're to make those connections with folks. I should say I actually knew you before I got to work with you in the broadcast profession too, because man, like it was a time honored tradition here in Windsor, and people who are watching the show or listening to the show after the fact, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, people went to Terracottas for freaking pizza. Like, dude, we would go. That was like a staple. What was it? Correct me if I'm wrong. Tuesdays.
Well, Tuesday night was 2-for-1 pizza for everybody, and then Wednesday was anybody that was in Specs Howard, St. Clair College, University of Wyoming. As long as you were in a post-secondary school function, you got 2-for-1 pizza on Wednesdays too.
It was. I mean, you must have loved. I just remember just coming to the tables, and you're just so customer service driven. Like you made people feel like they were family coming. Like as soon as you're coming in, like you didn't know me from Jack, whoever coming in, but you were always like, "Hey, how's it going? What's going on?" And we would come at like Tuesday nights. We'd go have some pizza. This is during my college days, high school days, and then we'd go down to Peppers and have a couple of drinks, right?
Sure.
But it's like I just remember you just having that hands-on approach, and it was just really nice to see that you had that connection. And I think and correct me if I'm wrong, that's probably why Terracotta was so successful. So you guys really made folks feel like family.
I think it really was that, because it was that whole thing where, I mean, there'd be a lot of times where I may not remember your name, but I knew your order. So I knew you were the strapata guy that takes the mushrooms off and puts on onions. You drink a red stripe beer, and you always took the bee sting hot sauce. Boom. And I'd go, boom. It's just what we did. And what I used to love about Terracotta too, though, was sometimes it would be the Beastie Boys playing. Like I remember one night we had Neil Diamond playing, and it's a restaurant. It's packed, and it's Sweet Caroline. And in the middle of service, you hear everybody going, bah, bah, bah. And I'm like, and they just stopped eating to sing. And I'm like, this is a restaurant. Oh my God, it's awesome.
It was fun. I remember, honestly, dude, like when you had that good vibe in there, and it was unreal, right? Like people would kind of run into each other, and you kind of had like that camaraderie. You'd see people from the U, you see people from St. Clair College. It was just a good time. I mean, you got out of that business, but do you miss it?
I didn't for a while. Life just changed. I got married. I did some things, and I needed a break. And but I've always loved the bar restaurant business. I've always been. My first job was working at Faces on College, and Martinello family, I love you. I lied to you. I had no experience. They knew that with the way I did things, but I learned, and it was fun, and it was just a good time. And I've always kind of I've just enjoyed it. It's. I don't take life seriously, and I know that, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful or a negative way, but I was in the room when my dad died. I was in the room when my mom died. I had my puppy in my arms when she died. Like these kind of sob stories. And then I woke up and I saw flowers. I've got my 3 dogs that I have now. I've got friends like you. So I still saw all these good things in the world. And that's why I don't take the world as seriously. Like, people fight on the internet, and you see
Oh
these
God.
crazy battles on social media. And I'm like, listen, in the grand scheme of things, I can't fix I can't fix John in Kansas. Maybe I can, if you said, "Hey, Greg, can you help me out?" I can help
You're there.
somebody in my local area. I can't fix Africa. I maybe can fix Windsor, and then Windsor can fix the next town, and then the next town. I'm a believer of doing the ripple to make a wave, as opposed to
I
trying to
love that.
make a wave, because sometimes the wave never forms. I'd rather do that little ripple to fix my block first. You know?
Yeah, and hey, my wife chimes in on this. Carrie, she says, "Cheers to that, Greg. That's a great attitude to have."
Thank you.
A couple things about that. One thing I've quickly learned in my, because for a while there, for me, dude, it was like all work all the time, right? And you do that
Oh,
when you're
you were.
young. You just want to just make it. For me, I wanted to prove I had something to prove, right?
Yeah.
I want to make a name for myself, right? And it's a little bit different for kids who, and this. I mean, we can talk about the mental health thing too. I mean, that's something I think that you've been a champion of. So I want to get into that over the next little bit. But you take a step back, and like when I had I call him my kid, but my son Liam, and all the stuff that we went through, and you take a step back, and it's like, you know what about life? I mean, I still get stressed out about stuff. Trust me, I'm like type A, right? But I've tried to teach myself now where it's like nobody's getting out alive when it comes to life, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, if you can, I mean, one of my biggest regrets, and I said this to Lander when Mark was on my show, I said this to Chris Tolmie when he was on the show, I said it to a lot of the folks. I said one of my biggest regrets in my professional life is not spending more quality time with folks that I quote unquote call friends, that I was just so focused on things. And you're right, if I didn't take things so seriously, I could look back, but should have, would have, could have, didn't. But now you look at things and say, now, like you said, now is an opportunity to move forward with some purpose. And I mean, God, you speak about the internet stuff too, dude. Like, I am just so exhausted of hearing the negativity. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I finally decided to get off the pot, so to speak, and make this show.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I there was a study I quoted on one of my social media posts promoting the show, where they actually did a study, and they say if you constantly consume news at the rate it's coming with the doom and gloom, it is not good for your mental health at
Oh,
all. Like, it is detrimental to your health. And
a
you're right.
hundred
Like,
percent.
how much can you carve that out that really affects your day to day? And it's like, you've seen it, dude. I want to know what's happening here in Windsor. I want to know what's happening across Essex County. If you have a national story, I've said this until I'm blue in the face, dude. If you have a national story, I already know that the higher ups who make lots more money than us in Toronto are going to cover it, right? They're going to go, they're going to run, they're going to send all the resources. So if you can put a localized angle to that story, for me living in Windsor, Essex, then I give it crap, pardon my language. So it just, I see all this stuff go on online sometimes, and I kind of say to myself, okay, like, I'm not going to read the comments, man. Like, you can't do it. And, kudos for you for having that mentality too, because I will say right now, dude, it is exhausting.
Yeah. But now to be fair, and I say the same thing, but then sometimes I do read the comments, and the it's kind of like driving past a car accident.
Mm.
You're not supposed to look to see if there was any injuries, and then you sometimes go, oh, and that's how I feel about some of the comments sometimes, where I just go, oh, please, why do people think this way?
Yeah. I just think that people are just so, I mean, that old adage of, extending an olive branch and trying to walk a mile in somebody's shoes, is gone. I think people are so quick to grab their pitchfork and assemble the mob at the gates, as opposed to just saying, hey, wait a second.
Well, well,
I
Trevor Noah said something the last episode that he was on, that the last episode of this year, and
Toronto,
Adriano, I love you.
you're such a good guy,
No,
eh?
but
You got
it's a
okay. What are
space
you drinking?
invader. I'm having a beer.
You having a beer? Hey, listen, we gotta. Okay, hang on. We're getting in the philosophical stuff, which is I got goosebumps talking to this guy about, because Greg is like the Yoda of this stuff, and I want to pick his brain. But we'll get to why he's drinking a beer here in the next couple minutes. Adriano, stay tuned for that. But sorry to interject here. You were saying?
Um, I don't remember. No.
We're not that deep in yet, man. We
Wait,
still got a
remind
couple
me
more
what we were
beers.
talking about. No, no, actually, my mind just went blank. What were we talking
No,
about?
you were saying about Trevor Noah.
Oh, Trevor Noah. Thank you. Oh my
You're welcome,
goodness.
sir. You're welcome.
No, but one of the things he said at the end, he said, people, it's almost fashionable to be angry right now,
It's
right? And
exhausting.
it's like people are looking to find the negative in things, and I'm like, and like I posted something on my social media page.
Mhm.
So my thought, right? My father was this awesome guy. He taught at the University of Windsor. He was a professor at chemical and environmental engineering, but he had all these incredible sayings about things. And I'd go every once in a while. I'd look at him. I'd go, where did this come from? Because he was the man who saw everything as black and white, but then he would say something, and you'd go, "That's so beautiful." What? So I told the story of when I was a child. My dad, to make it a little bit understandable, he said, and I'm talking a child. I'm 5, 6 years old, and this still sticks in my head. My dad said there was a woman in the mall in a wheelchair, an older woman, and I remember she had a blanket over her legs while she was in her wheelchair. And there, probably her husband was pushing behind her. And he looked at me and he's like, and kind of weirded out. Why is this woman in a wheelchair? It's kind of weird. You don't see that very often. And he goes, there's nothing wrong. She, right. And he goes, she's a mermaid. And this is how they can come up, and we get to know how different people react. So you never judge people. You never know what's hidden underneath things. And right, it was this whole thing of like not judging somebody. And he kind of softened the blow, calling her a mermaid, covering up her fin.
Mhm.
This woman attacked me and said, your father made fun of someone who might not be able to walk. And I went, but he didn't. He was trying to explain that, sure, she was in a wheelchair. She wasn't able to walk, the whole thing, but it still makes her beautiful. It still made her magical. It still made her awesome. You don't always have to go, you know what? She's handicapped. No, she's still a magical human being. And he made me go, all right, I'm not going to look twice and go, oh my God, maybe I'll become, maybe I'll lose the ability to walk. And to me, sometimes it's okay to find a little fantasy in the world, and soften the blow. And you don't always have to, you don't have to always be 100% correct. You know what? Sometimes being 90% correct's okay, and let somebody else have their 10%. It's easier that way. And it's also kinder,
Yeah, and I think too, generally speaking, like just through the world today, it's like people. I mean, I get it, man. Like the world. I often said on the show, we're 16 episodes deep with you tonight, my man, and it's like I've said from day one from the show. My first guest was Luke Michaud, who I know we both worked with over the years, and I said to Luke, it's like people today, I'm not all people, and I'm not centering out people too, but it's like, we have gone through things that honestly we read through in history books, like the Spanish influenza in 1918, right? Like the world as we know it ended in March of 2020.
Yeah.
And, I don't, when people say we're all in the same boat, we're not. There were people who were able to benefit very well from the pandemic, and there were people who were able to just continue on, and there are people who their whole world turned upside down. And I think the one thing that has gone away is, like you said, that kindness. I think we do things slowly coming back a bit, but I honestly think that that physical connection, that in-person connection, hopefully will rebound in the next little bit as things hopefully get under control. So one area that I think is going to be huge is people wanting to get out. Like my wife and I have been saying, like we'd like to go out, and being very strategic. I promised my wife I wouldn't use that word again on the show, but being very
Sorry,
strategic about.
honey.
I know, right? Sorry, Care, for using that word. Um, but no, but really being methodical in the sense that, okay, like if we're going to go out, let's make the best of the time that we have out, even if it's going to be a limited window. And one area I was pretty pumped up to see, and the big announcement, speaking of Facebook, you made was on your Facebook page about your next opportunity. And I think, my God, what a freaking awesome way to get back into the community and do what you were so excellent at doing. And that's why you're drinking beer tonight, because you were kind of getting ready for Friday, right?
Well, and that's the thing. And I didn't realize how many people wanted to see me as a stripper. So I've been working out, not well. No, just no. Yeah, I'm working with my friend Michelle. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You know what? That's but in Canada, the worst thing is in Canada, it's all loonies and toonies. So instead of making it rain, it's more like hail. It's you
get like a bucket. No.
Yeah. No, I'm going to be So I'm going to be. I'm involved with Karma Wine and Whiskey Lounge on Riverside Drive with Michelle Tremblay. And today it was a tough job where I was tasting whiskeys and wine.
That's awesome.
So Adriano, this is why I'm having a beer right now, because I had a lot of scotch this afternoon.
So this is a relatively new venture, right? For everyone involved, and
well,
you're
Michelle,
going to be.
So Karma's been around for a couple of years. Of course, because of COVID, it shut down, and sporadic openings, things like that. Yeah. After I got let go from 93.9 The River, she was like, "Hey, Greg, listen, you love whiskey, and I do. I always tell people I have two hobbies. It's whiskey and it's going out to eat. I love to, I'll go on vacation because a chef opened a new restaurant in a city. And I'm like, I'm going to this city, because, Lynn Crawford opened up her own restaurant. I want to eat there because I love Lynn Crawford. So I'll go on vacation. Nice. And so Michelle called me up and she goes, "Hey, I'd kind of like to add some whiskeys to the bar, and would you like to come in and help me out?" And I'm like, "Well," and she goes, "How about the grand opening? You can bartend that weekend." And I went, "Michelle, not like I'm getting up for work right now." I said, "Well, how about I just come in on board and work with you?" And she was like, "Really?" So, oh yeah. So it's been awesome. Like tomorrow I get to go whiskey shopping again.
That's amazing.
And it's going to be fun. It's just going to be a good time. It's like, I'm looking forward to it. It's that whole thing, because I've got all these great stories to tell, but I love listening to other people's stories. I love when somebody tells me, somebody goes, "Let me tell you this." And I go, "Oh, really? That's awesome." Because so many people have funny things that have happened to them. Or sometimes they're even heartbreaking and you're like, "Oh my God, how did you get through that?" And then they tell you and you're like, "That's pretty impressive."
So you get
to come on out. I'll buy you a whiskey one day.
Well, when you guys are up and running, what is it? This Friday, you're going to be kicking the doors open?
Well, yeah, this is our official
soft launch, kind of
soft, hard opening. Yeah.
Semi quasi in and out of lockdown.
Yeah.
Stage Gelta.
Basically, the way I'm going to explain it this way: if somebody says, "Hey, can I have this?" and I pour something else, I'm going to go, "Listen, it's been 14 years since I bartended last. I may make a few mistakes. I'm just saying."
Oh, dude, you're going to be great. I think you're going to be great. It's going to be cool for folks too to come in and kind of chat your ear off and have sort of that engaging person behind the counter, right? Where you can kind of learn a little bit more about the whiskey that they're drinking, which is good, because that's a passion too. It's not like you're just pouring. You're like, "Hey, try this. This is halfway decent."
Yeah. But the one thing though that I do want to tell everybody, I hope people will try out Thursday nights. So Thursday nights is going to be called Thirsty Throwback Thursdays.
Nice.
All 80s and 90s music, whether it's Nirvana to JJ Fad, some hip hop to Guns N' Roses. It's all things are fair game. We're going to bring back like cherry whiskey and Coke, fuzzy navels,
So good.
drinks like that. It's just going to be fun.
That's
And I'm going
awesome.
to tell stories. I'm going to tell stories about like, drinking Depeche Mode's, beer at Pine Knob.
Oh my God. Because, dude, you have so many of them, right? Through the years, through all the live concerts that, you were a part of and got to get up on stage and just be a part of. There's probably some legendary stories there.
Well, the one thing that I always tell people is I'm really glad cell phones didn't exist while I was like, honestly, I say that from the bottom of my black little heart. I am so glad that this kind of a thing did not exist in my real, like the real early days of 89X, because
You'd be in trouble.
I probably would have been fired or suspended many times.
Yes. Brought to the principal's office, right?
Yep.
My first, I said this before on the show, but my first experience with you, watching you do your thing on stage in a DJ capacity, right? Because I try to win tickets off you all the time when I used to listen to 89X. And then when I got to work with you on 89X was when I was doing promo on this side of the border, because I know 89X in its heyday had offices in Bingham Farms and in downtown Windsor.
Yep.
And you sort of had the Canadian contingency, which was like Greg, Heidi, myself, Dave Hunter. And then you had the American jocks, Cal, Christina, Vince Canova, list goes on and on. But, we would, I think it was Birthday Bash, 89X, State Theater, Fillmore, and the empty lot between. Remember when we did the three venues?
God, that was amazing.
That was my first concert ever. That was my first concert, and that was honestly like kind of sheltered growing up. You talk about, you figure skating, dude. I was like super sheltered growing up. So it was the Killers. Franz Ferdinand was there too.
Social Distortion.
Yeah, Social D, and it was like, and then I remember you and Christina were emceeing, I think, the outside, and then you were back in on the Fillmore side because we went in because that's where the free food was for the staff, right? They had the area. Back there, I'm like, me and my buddy Jeff were there going like eating like pigs, right? But I remember seeing you, and then you're up on stage, and you just like you walked out. I'll never forget this, and I think you were introducing Social D. I could be wrong, but you just like that voice came on the mic, and it just like how everyone's at concert, right? Everybody, somebody smoking something somewhere, right? like it's a vibe, right? And then your voice comes up on the mic, and Christina's with you. God bless her, love her to death. And I was like, dude, like the crowd went nuts, and I'm like, that's the man. I remember sitting up like watching like that, like you just commanded it, and you got the crowd all riled up, and then away you go. It was pretty cool to see, dude.
But you know what? It was fun. It was. I like. I describe it this way with 89X, and 89X was something magical from the beginning of it to like the mid, like 2005, and then it kind of it lost some of what it was all about, and then at the end guys like Mark McKenzie and Chris, Kim Scott, they brought back that
feel, that vibe, right?
Kind of like that kind of like nobody believes in us. It's like we're a bunch of, nobody ever believed in us. And Bell would kind of just ignore us because they're like, you're in Windsor, whatever. Windsor doesn't count. We don't care. Do your own thing. And we'd all of a sudden be like, but Detroit likes us. And Bell would, be like, yeah. Don't get fined. That's what I always felt like we were always that station. As long as you kind of broke even and didn't get fined, they left us alone. And then it was like, but hey guys, you know what I mean? And it was fun. And it was like, when you got on stage, you were proud. Like you were proud of being from 89X. Like I still remember one of my very first concert announcements ever
Mhm.
ever in my entire life. Lollapalooza, first one, Pine Knob. So we were able to we were broadcasting from, it was an ice cream stand, but there was a problem there, so they let us broadcast, set up our equipment there. The girl that was the program director at the time, I think her name was Michelle Denemy, I believe. She goes, "All right, we need somebody to do the concert announcements and the rules." Okay, Gnyp, you go do them. I've never been on stage other than, like, I was Charlie Brown in grade 6. At Southwood, go Sabres,
Yeah.
right? It's, so I'm standing behind the stage, and I peek through the curtain, and the Pine Knob, the grass is filled. There's no more people on the grass, and the pavilion's got 3/4 capacity already. My first stage announcement ever now. And I'm like, and then they're like, 3, 2, 1, go. And I walk out there, and I think my first word was, hello, hi, hello.
Is this
And
the
it's like,
dawn?
yeah, pretty much, right? And then I've got to do this. I'm like, okay, hey, I'm Gnyp from 89X, the cutting edge of rock. That's what it was, cutting edge of rock at the time.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, that's all. Yeah. I'm like, I've got some rules. Don't throw sod at the stage. You must keep your pants on. And I'm like, who am I? Everyone's mom? But it was awesome. It was like the crazy, walking back to the broadcast booth, and people are like, here, dude, I bought you a beer. I'm like, no, you didn't. That was the beer you're drinking, and there's probably something in it.
Down the hatch.
I'm like, well, here you go. If it doesn't kill me, it makes me stronger. Or a fairy. Woo-hoo-hoo, I'm an elf, It's like, but it was great fun. It was all so different.
We had a couple of comments here in the feed too. Brenda wants to say, hey, what's your favorite whiskey if you had to choose one, Greg?
That's really hard, because it's, where am I drinking it, and what time of year is it? You know what? Actually, I can answer this one. You know what? My favorite whiskey of all time is made in Windsor, and it is Dr. Don Livermore's PhD project. It's Weiser's dissertation. And you can't find it anymore. They only made X amount of bottles. It is the most beautiful whiskey I've ever had. It is absolutely stunning. If you ever somebody says, I have a bottle of it, taste it, it is stunning. So you know what? Dissertation is probably my favorite.
Can't find it anywhere. It's like nowhere to be. Like, that's it. Oh my God.
I have a bottle and a half left. And it's the all of them. Have you seen my liver? Yes.
You would be correct, Mike. Yes, you would be correct.
It's a little spongy. But I love bourbons. Again, it's that whole thing where, for me, whiskey is an adventure. It's like there's these subtle nuances where you just, you go like this and you go, oh my God, that one tastes like vanilla. And then you try a different one, you go, is that peach in there? And it's not a peach schnapps. It's like, so it's fun.
Man after my own, Mike says. There you go. Brenda says, LOL, that's awesome. Greg Gnyp is my guest on the show today. Awesome dude. If you think of radio in Windsor, Essex, Greg has to be at the top of your list for all of his awesome work on 89X and 93.9 The River. So when you made that segue from 89X to 93.9, tell me how you felt about that, and then walk me through the glory days of 93.9, because for a while there it was making, I mean, I would say it was making a huge splash here locally. I can't
Oh,
speak for Detroit was doing well too, right?
yeah. I mean, well, I mean, for the longest, I mean, basically, we were 93.9 The River, was, with Mark Lander and, at the beginning there was Jimmy James, and then we had Zach on there. Um, uh, then we had Emily that was on at the end. All these, right? We were actually the number one FM in Windsor. The River had we were like, we always joke that we were the misfits of the building because everybody kind of went, it's that station, and we'd always be like, our ratings, we won. You know what? I left it. Matt Franklin, Fat Matt, who's over at Blackbird now. He was the program director at for the River, and he's like, "Hey, Gnyp, listen, you're doing some part-time work on the River. Would you be interested coming over and doing a full-time gig? So you're going to leave 89X, and so that was in 2006. Thank you. Thank you, Solange. I should probably put my cheaters on. But so that was 2006, and it was that weird thing because I'm like, I don't know, what should I do? What should I do? Do I move? Do I do this? And then what made me decide that I should move, and it's going to sound funny the way I'm going to say this.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing an 89X event, and this pretty girl came up to me, and she's like, "Oh my God, can you do me a huge favor?" And I'm like, "Well, of course. I mean, that's my job." She's like, "It's my twin sister's birthday." And I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, "So it's your birthday too then?" She's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, right. And she's like, "Can you wish her a happy birthday?" And I said, "Sure." And I said, "Well, so what's her name? What's your name? I'm going to give you guys a big, huge shout out and lots of love." And I went, "And how old are you guys?" And she's like, 18. And I went, "Huh. Your sister's 18. You're 18. If I added your ages together, I'm still 4 years older than you. I must go to the new radio station. I'm now getting too old." And it's that whole thing where I'm like, wow, I put the two ages together and I'm still older than them. I should probably go to the River now. We're going to lean a little older now.
But like the River, I remember talking to you one time about the River. This is when you guys first launched, right? Like probably 2007, 2008, when I was getting some advice from you when you were kind of doing the segue thing, when you were kind of doing double duty on both. And you were like, the River, I remember you said to me, the River was like where the 89X guys and gals go when they graduate. It's like
Yes.
it's still the cool 89X vibe, but it's like, I've heard some Nirvana on like OMC now, like while I'm driving, and that blows me away. Right?
Oh,
Like they would
100%. Yeah.
like I Soundgarden on OMC. I'm like, what? Right? So it's like,
Oh, yeah.
and then I like my sisters. Like I was jamming to some acoustic stuff I found from Chris Cornell when he was on Sirius XM a couple years before he passed, and I love it. Like it's honestly on my Spotify playlist. And I was listening in the car, and my sister one time we went out to lunch about a couple weeks ago. She goes, "Who the heck is this?" I'm like, "You don't know who Chris Cornell is?" And she's like, "No," and she's like, "What is this, like classic?" And I'm like, "Oh my God!" Like
How much?
I get it.
How
I
younger
get
is
it.
she?
What, she's 20? She's gonna kill me. 23.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and to me, it's like, it was just like, man, it's Chris Cornell, right? Like, do Soundgarden. all of the stuff he did independently. It's like, anyways, just a
So
joke. So I get what you're saying about like, you're like, oh
right.
my God.
Well, I always right, and I laugh about stories like that. Oh, that's very cool. Thank you, Mike.
God bless you, Mike. Thanks, buddy.
That's very cool. Thank you. Um, I it might have been Puff Daddy, I'm not, but they had, he sampled the Police in the song,
Yeah.
right? Every breath you take,
Okay, I'll be missing you. Yep.
right? So
Yep.
I had a great friend of mine. His daughter heard the Police song, and she was like, "I can't believe they ripped him off." And I'm like, "Yeah, right," because she didn't realize that was a sample. She thought he, had that recorded and created the whole thing in the song, the Puff Daddy song. She didn't realize that Every Breath You Take was actually originally done in the 80s by the Police. And I'm like, no, that song's 20 years old. He sampled it. And she was like, really? But, you don't think about it when you grow up with certain things. Like the first time I saw Soundgarden was at St. Andrews Hall, and the concert was Faith No More. Soundgarden was the opening band, and it was Voivod from Montreal. That was the concert. I think it was wow. I can't even think which album it was, but Soundgarden had just started to make a really big name for themselves. Then years later, they're playing Pine Knob, they're playing DTE, things like that. And it was, but in my head, well, they're just part of your life.
Yeah. When you went to 93.9 and you kicked ass there, because you did.
Thank you.
And, I remember you kind of did the dance of mornings with Mark, right? Like sometimes
Yep.
you'd be on mornings and sometimes you'd be in the afternoon, and then the retro lunch, all of those. I would go out and I would hear your voice all the time on 93.9. It was just such a great station. And then COVID happens and you're no longer there, right? In your wide array of experience, being local, being in Detroit, being radio in this region, how does radio move past a pandemic world and remain viable in the next 5 to 10 years, in your opinion?
Honestly, there's two ways, and one is horrible and one, I love what they're doing. And you can do, and I'm saying this not as a laid off employee, but you can do what Bell did. Let go of all your talent who loved the city, bring in generic like styles. I mean, let's be honest, Virgin is just a generic brand. It's the same in Windsor as it is in Toledo or in Toronto, which is in Montreal, or Kamloops. Bring in a bunch of young kids who are eager. They're eager and they want to be on the radio. God bless them for it. But I listened to one of the younger guys on Virgin, and he's like, well, how many people in Windsor would ever think of driving down 8 Mile? It's got to be pretty scary because all know what that Eminem movie sure makes it not seem safe. And I'm like, there's some like really big shopping malls on some parts of 8 Mile, right? And it was this whole thing. So you can either go generic kind of fast food chain radio that isn't about the city, it's just about making advertisers happy. Or you can do what Blackburn's doing. And they've just been slow and steady, slow and steady, slow and steady, slow and steady. Hey, you know what? We're not going to make a lot of waves right away. Guess what? Hey, you know what? We're still here. And they're going to talk about the downtown farmers market. They're going to talk about what's going on in Walkerville. They're going to know that Amherstburg has the Salty Dog and Pepper Cats.
Oh my God, love them.
Right?
Love them. Yeah.
Right. But these young kids are still, first of all, they're still just trying to discover, they just moved here. So they're still unpacking their bags. So I think that's going to be the two differences in radio. You're either going to have the generic kind of fast food format, or you're going to have these kind of small mom and pop radio companies that might only have 20 radio stations, but they're going to be so loyal to the market they're in. And it's going to be up to us to decide, what do we want? Do we want to go and eat McDonald's radio, or do we want to eat, a good hearty meal of local?
I like the way you put that. And I think, in that realm, there's opportunity, right? I think, the way people are consuming media nowadays is just exponential, in the sense that, first thing I do when I get up in the morning is I check my phone, right? And, I try to get a quick update. I try to get what I need to know, and then it's off to the races. So it'd be really interesting, I think, to see how this all plays out. But I still maintain.
I was going to say, you're young. First thing I do when I wake up in the morning, I go, yeah, still beating. Good.
I'm almost at that point, brother. I'm almost at that point. I reach over my phone. I'm like, oh God, yep, I'm still here.
Yep. There we go.
I just think that, there's opportunity, right, from a local lens to do some incredible stuff, and people want to hear good things about Windsor, and they want to. Here's the thing. I used to get into rounds on this when I was doing Strictly News. It's like, and I said it at the beginning of the show, it's like, you can do a good news story, but it doesn't have to be puppy dogs and roses all the time. You can ask a hard question. You can, hold people accountable, but you can also really showcase something that's original and unique, and make people go, huh, that's in my neighborhood. That's in my city. Those are people that are doing it. Or here's a problem with somebody. And you're able to sort of, instead of doing the conflict, two negative voices, get that reaction online, right? You get two opposing voices. No, here's the issue. This is the problem. Can you fix it? Right? Instead of just saying, it's like, it's exhausting.
But that's how you've always been. You've always been one of those kind of guys that's always tried to, I don't know, I'm going to say it this way, be intelligent in the sense that.
Thanks, brother. Well, thank you.
I'm sure your wife's giggling in the corner somewhere right now.
She's eating popcorn on the deck, watching the show on her phone. She's going, intelligent my
He's
ass.
Like, no. Let me tell you stories, right? But it's that exactly. That's the thing. I remember once doing an interview with Sam Roberts.
Oh yeah, awesome.
And
love his
and it was during COVID, and he had come out with a couple of new songs, and the girl, from the record company, she's like,
yeah, she is. I knew
that's awesome.
We went to Open Streets Kingsville, and I bought her a bunch of popcorn this weekend.
There's a little bit right there. Right there. Yeah. But so we started off and we started talking about music, and we did his whole music thing. And then I said something. He goes, "You know what one of the hardest things in the world is?" And I'm like, "No." He goes, "5th grade math." And I went, "Yes." He's like, "My daughter's in 5th grade." So for the next 10 minutes, we talked about him staying home, teaching helping his kids in school because it was all online. Gone was the day of talking about concerts and tours, and it was about talking about humanity and life and that kind of stuff. And it was the funniest interview because, he's like, "Did you know down the street, there's a place that does fresh cookies 3 days a week?" He's like, "I've gained 5 pounds just from these guys. I take the dog, I walk and get cookies, I eat a cookie home." And it was just this awesome story where, I could have been like, "So how did you come up with the lyrics for, Detroit 67? I kind of didn't care. in that case, I'm like learning something more about Sam Roberts, and it was like, it's kind of fun. It's kind of a
Yeah,
fun story.
and it's unique too because it's like you're Gnyp and you have a background and you have a personality very much in the Windsor Detroit area. So it's like I like to see when you use your personality to bring out the personality of the person that you're interviewing, because that's where the great content comes in. I mean, you know who's made millions off of that is Joe Rogan,
Oh
right?
yeah,
I mean, Joe will just sit there for like 4 or 5 hours with a guest. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff he talks about, but they go back and forth, and he really brings on the guests, and they just go back and forth, and it's like, I mean, I know a lot of people aren't going to dump 5 hours of their time to listen to a whole show or watch a whole live stream. I get that, but I think when you can kind of find that market and say, okay, well, we're going to focus on Windsor, we're going to tell on really good stories about Windsor and people you may or may not know. I think it's so crucial too. So I mean, and then that's what I think you guys, from an editorial standpoint, between you and Chris Uzinski, this is what you guys are doing on your show, right? And this is something that you guys have launched recently.
yep. It's called Gnyp, based after the old game from the 70s.
Nice.
Right. So, right. So Gnyp spelled backwards is actually ping pong.
Oh,
So it's actually GNIP. Then
IP.
so it's ping
Yeah.
pong, right?
Yeah.
So and Chris and I have been friends, God, since university days, and we've done all. We used to book concerts in Windsor. We brought, the Tragically Hip to Windsor. We brought 5440. We brought Blue Rodeo. All these bands, like, they played at different venues around Windsor, all back then. Glenn, thank you.
Good guy, Glenn. Always a legend, always a listener. Best storyteller. Good guy, Glenn.
I love Glenn. He's good
Solid
people.
dude.
Good
Solid
people,
dude.
right? But I said to him, I said, I just want to tell stories. I just want to talk. Sometimes I want to, like, I complain. Like, I actually had one show where I actually got angry, because I refuse to break. I've been very careful through the whole pandemic. And I've had a couple of people say, listen, come on in, I'll cut your hair, do all that kind of stuff. So my hair was down, like bushy
Poof.
beard.
Yeah.
It was ugly. Sure. I don't look good with long hair at all. So the guy that does my hair, finally everything's open up. He cut it, did this whole thing. And I posted a picture, and I posted the picture not to say, look at me, I want comments about my hair. I said, oh my God, it just feels good a little bit of normal feels good. And one of the first comments was, oh, your hair looks a little bit like Hitler.
Go pound salt. At that point, go pound salt. Honest to God.
And
I can't.
Right.
Go have a Snickers bar.
Right. It's that whole thing. If you don't have something nice to say,
don't say it.
Just walk away. You don't need to say that. And it was one of those ones. So I kind of made a joke about it on the show where I was like, I'm like, why? Why would you say that? It's kind of like the people who go, hey, look at this. I made this card. And somebody says, yeah, you know what? You can get nicer cards at Shoppers. I'm always like this. Oh my God.
That kind of stuff. Oh, let me tell you, man. And listen, there were some people that we worked with that were like that. 100%. 100%. I'm just going to say that. And back then, for me, I would have said, like, okay, yeah, no problem. Yeah, you're right. But now it's like, I don't got time for that, man. Like, that stuff is infectious. When you've got people saying that all the time and they're dragging you in, and I'm not saying, well, you can't live your life with rose-colored glasses on and no, but I can be very positive and try to find solutions and just say, you know what, like we said at the beginning of the show, people are going through Everwatch, like you said, golden rule. You know, nothing nice to say, don't say it. Like, why do you got to drag people into that vortex of negativity?
Yeah.
Like that stuff is contagious. Stay the heck away from me,
Well, the one thing that my dad used to always tell me, and it rings true to me, was, well, one was, Greg, you're an idiot. But the other thing he'd always say to me was, he'd go there a couple of times he'd go, see the people that are, in that car there? And I'd go, because, if I was complaining about something, he'd go, see those people in that car right there? I go, yeah. He goes, do you know them? I'm like, no. He goes, I don't know them either. I'm like, okay. He goes, I hope they're happy. And I'd be like, okay. He's like, no, I hope they're happy. Because if they're happy, that's great. And their happiness won't take away from my happiness. So why would I wish anything? And why would I even try to, rain on their parade? He's like, sure. Let them be in their car and be happy. Because I'll be in my car and we can be happy. And I'm like, and I would always, when you're younger, you're like, oh, no. And I'm like, and the older I get, the more I go, like, I don't care. I drive an old car. I have a 27-year-old Harley Davidson. She's beat up but she's mine. I love her. Buttercup is my little girl. And we ride, and sometimes she goes, and I go, it's okay, honey. You've got asthma. I love you. I'll give you extra oil when we get home. But she's, I could trade her in, and I could get something shinier and bigger and fancier.
They always say, what was it? There's a quote that circulates the internet that I see often with, it's attributed to the late great Heath Ledger, but it's like, they always ask you, what you're going to do and how you're going to make a living, but they never ask you, are you going to be happy? Right?
Yes.
And I don't know if that's Heath Ledger. Correct me if I'm butchering it. I'm sure I'll get comments after the fact. That's fine. But I love that, because it's like, I think if the pandemic has taught me anything, it's really getting back to a good place, getting back to a good center. And, you do what makes you happy, and you do what, brings others happiness. Right. And I think, I love your analogy from your dad, right? If people are happy, let them be happy. What was it to you?
Well, so one of my favorite musicians in the world is Gwen Stefani.
She's great.
Right? But it's not even her music. So I was doing a live broadcast from the Phoenix Plaza in Pontiac. And the concert was Marcy Playground, Third Eye Blind, No Doubt, and the local band that won the contest to be on the tour. So I'm doing a live broadcast from the show, and I'm doing interviews with all the bands. And it was awesome the way they did it, because, a lot of times the local band would be the first band on when there's not as many people there. This one, so the headliners were, one night it would be No Doubt, one night it would be Third Eye Blind, back and forth. So in Detroit it was Marcy Playground, No Doubt, the local band, then Third Eye Blind. So I'm supposed to do interviews with everybody, and we're taking care, so I do the interview with Marcy Playground. They're just excited. Anybody wanted to talk to them. They were like, they had the one song, Sex and Candy. They were like, you want to talk to us? We'll be right, we're here. Hi. Great guys. So now I go back. So Marcy, No Doubt plays, and I go back to go get the band. And, knock on the door. And it's like, hi, I'm here. Can we bring you to the where we're broadcasting from? It's right around the corner. And Gwen Stefani looks at me and she's like, listen, I know I'm supposed to do it right now. I can't. And I'm like, oh, I hope she's not going to be one of those kind of artists that says, I'm tired. I don't want to do it. I'm just going to blow things off. I'm like, okay. She goes, no, don't go anywhere. She's like, I just have to do something before we have to do something before we go. And I'm like, okay. She's like, just wait right here. Taps the shoulder of this guy that's doing security by the stage. She goes, excuse me. And she flashes her all access pass and everything like this, that whole kind of thing. And she says, I'm just going to go. So the whole band walked into the crowd to shake hands with people.
That's awesome.
10 minutes, people rush them. They're doing all that kind of stuff. They come back and she goes, okay, let's go do the interview. So I asked her and I said, what's that about? I've never seen anybody do that. She goes, well, if I don't say thank you to my fans, and tell them I love them and I appreciate them, I could be selling shoes or insurance. She goes, I'm touring North America playing music, and I better return the thank you.
Sure.
And it was funny because the same night, the lead singer of Third Eye Blind was the exact opposite. We had things set up, ready to go. And he's like, yeah, no, you'll wait for me. And I'm like, we're done broadcasting at 10. He's like, well, then, he's like, well, I won't do it until that. And I just looked at him. I went, all right, I guess I'm not doing your interview because I can't pull airtime from anything. So it's that whole thing where it's like, I don't know, be happy with what you're doing and make people happy.
Chris Uzinski in the stream. Love you, man. I mean, guys. There you go.
Chris.
Love
That's
you,
my
Chris.
boy.
Solid dude. Which, shameless plug here, and I know that you're involved with the Humane Society as well. I gotta circle back with Chris sometime soon because I've got a couple of ideas I want to pick his brain on for some fun stuff.
Yeah, can I give you a word of advice? If you're gonna pick Chris's brain,
yeah,
suggest a day with whiskey.
Okay. He's been bugging, and he's an Amherstburg guy too, right? So
yeah,
he's been bugging me to come out there. Maybe it's a triple threat one night. Maybe Uzinski and I can come over to you when you guys are. Well, no, I don't want you to work. Maybe the three of us will just go over to Uzinski's and we can harass him to do things for the Humane Society.
yeah.
A couple other comments here. Hey, Ron Dunn on the podcast. Hey, great podcast. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And we definitely want you to check out Chris
and
Gnyp's podcast. It's actually pretty epic too. You guys have what, new episodes every Friday generally?
Yeah, every Friday. Yeah, we do it live. Well, we do it live at noon, and then we throw it up all over. Every every channel that will accept us.
Awesome stuff. Hey, Solange, thank you very much. We're having some fun. Usually these particular shows that we do here on the project, we keep them to about an hour. But Gnyp is like Adriano, one of the exceptions to the rule. So we'll keep going here. You got a little bit more time there to go, man, or what?
I got all the time in the world.
Oh,
my dogs. I've got 3 dogs. I'm looking around, going like, I'm like, yeah, I've got 3 dogs snoring around. So if you hear snoring, it's my dogs.
That's all right. You know what? It's funny. A couple of people have said to me, they're like, "Hey, how come you do the show at 8:00 at night? Why don't you do it during the day?" I go, number one, I've got my gig during the day. I go, number two, I'm a dad too, right? So the little guy goes to bed around 6:37. My wife gets home from work around 6:30. So by the time I eat, get everything set up in the studio, for me, 8:00 is usually pretty good. So I always joke around with people. It's like prime time, right? Prime time on the net. That's it. Oh, we got the invite. Come by anytime. Okay, we're gonna have to set something.
Hey, good night, everybody. See you. We're leaving.
Party's at Chris's house. We're all going to Chris's. Yeah. We're hanging out at Chris's right now. We're headed. His wife would love that. We sashay over 10:00 every time we get there. Glenn, another comment here in the feed. Still a DC fan, eh? Nice shirt. Yeah, I'm. That's one thing that never goes away. Still a comic book fan, even more so. That's one thing about the pandemic too. It's like, especially in the last year, it's like I've got to. For me, I've got to spend a lot of time with my son, which is fantastic, and kind of see him sort of develop and get to like the things that he likes. And, for me, it's kind of reset too. I've got into, watching a lot of shows, streaming all my favorite stuff. It's been okay. Like, I've had a chance to kind of reset a little bit. And you've got your lovely dogs, right? I mean, that's an opportunity for you to spend some time with them. And I'm sure they appreciate you, being around.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they've been very happy. They gave me the stink eye when I came home from Karma today. Kind of like, really, dude, you were gone that many hours. Sorry.
You're like, Dad's got to get out there. That's it. Dad's got to have a couple and get out there too. No, basically, Greg, I wanted to talk to you about your outlook on life. We kind of talked a little bit about the things that you sort of perpetuate out there. You're very positive, which is fantastic. But I know that you had some great work that you did with the CMHA, through Canadian Mental Health Association and this whole Focus project too. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell me about, you've been very open about the things that you've gone through too, which I think has been just absolutely fantastic for folks to sort of resonate with.
So it's I've always Robin Williams, right? Guys like him, people go, but he was always happy. And that's the thing, right? My whole job has always been, from the time I was 18 years old, has always been to be happy. Bartending, DJing in the clubs, being on the radio. Nobody ever wants to hear somebody going, hey, coming up next, I'm going to play a song by Depeche Mode. And I just got to be honest, I feel like shit today. Sorry.
It's okay.
It's 89, right? But nobody ever, you don't want that.
Yeah.
So I would always have to be the guy that would go, hey, that was brand new music from Depeche Mode. Coming up next, we're going to be listening to Soundgarden. Don't forget, we're throwing a party Friday night. And then I'd go, we'll be right back right after this. and thank God, and I say this, I'm incredibly blessed that I've never been suicidal in my life, but I've had many long strings where I didn't want to live anymore, or I didn't care if I lived anymore. So if I'd been hit by a car, I would have been like, meh, all right, shit happens. I mean, sorry, stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
I always described it as my gray box. Flowers would be blooming. It would be fireworks in the sky. And I'd go, everything is gray. This is my gray day. And it would go sometimes 3 weeks. But nobody would ever know it because I never, ever wanted, one, I didn't want you to be concerned. And two, I always felt like it would be, back in the day, mental issue. Like there was a stigma to it. If you said depression, people would be like, oh my God, you're crazy. No, it's right. And then as I've gotten older and it's become more, it's easier. You talk about it, and it's like, because people will say, hey, I've got diabetes, and nobody goes, put him in the corner. Nobody puts baby in the corner, right? But it was like that whole thing where, I was able to understand that if I can tell people about my story and tell people that, it's okay to have those feelings. It's okay that sometimes you're going to not feel great. And it's even better when you reach out to somebody and go, can you help me? Like, I just need some help. Sometimes it's like one of my biggest pet peeves ever in the entire world is, what you should do? Smile. If you smile, all that depression goes away. I'm like, no, it's like putting paint on a cracked wall. It looks nice, but it's decaying. And right. So that's the one thing that I learned through Canadian Mental Health Association. And like the people that are there are like the Windsor branch they're superheroes with how much love they give to the community and to each other and to just what they believe in. And it's like, I tell my story. Like, I remember moving into the house I'm in now, and I have this beautiful porch. Absolutely, I love my porch. Is my favorite part of my house, and I got hit with the grayness, and I remember sitting outside like this, and then I realized that 3 hours had gone by, and I had done nothing. I just sat there 3 hours, just staring at stuff, but not focusing. And I realized I was like, that's probably not good. Because when I kind of weirdly came to, I looked at my watch and I'm like, I was 3 hours of my brain being somewhere else. And, I started to learn about mindfulness, and I started to learn about meditation,
Sure.
and even just going for a walk.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes just going for a walk kickstarts your brain again, and you're like, all right, you know. So that's how I got involved with Canadian Mental Health Association. It was Rebecca.
Rebecca, you chaps are awesome. Cheers. You need to take a whiskey tour in Scotland.
Only if you come with us, Rebecca. Let's go.
Jump on. Let's go. Simple out there. A couple more comments here too. Glenn says having a little bit of bourbon going while watching Gnyp. Cheers. People are
Bullet
drinking on tonight's
bourbon.
episode. That's okay. And then, hey, Steven's got a great one for you here too, Greg. Thanks, Gnyp, for all you've done on the airwaves. We'll always remember the good times. Thank you, my friend. He
Thank
also
you.
goes on to
I
say,
I am truly touched.
it's an amazing episode, Arms. Going through a rough time myself. Glad we can openly talk about this. Much needed time to get together and talk. So what
Stephen,
you
if you
talk about?
hey Stephen, seriously, friend me, and if you ever need to talk to me too, we can shoot the poop and you know, whatever.
That's what it's about, right?
It
That's
is.
that's
Well,
honestly what it's about.
and that's the thing. It's again, it's you know, I was very fortunate to date a girl she's still one of the loves of my life, but she was rich. It was awesome, right? But so I bought my car in 2005,
Okay.
and it was going to be a work car for my restaurant.
Yeah.
So I bought a 2005 Vibe, no power windows, no power locks, no like it's bare base. I said the only thing there was only two things I cared about: a sunroof and air conditioning. Everything else I could care less about because it was just a car. And I remember driving it, and her dad looked at me and said, "This is what you bought?" Yes. He's like, you could have bought something better. And I went, yes. He's like, meanwhile, they had like two Mercedes, a BMW, six SUVs, all this kind of stuff. I mean, right? And I looked at him and I said, but here's the thing. I'd rather take some of the money that I didn't spend on the car, because like I don't care if I pull up next to you and you see me in a 2005 Vibe back, right? I didn't care. But it meant more to me saying, hey, hun, let's go to Montreal for a weekend and make a memory and make, have some fun, have some fun with life. A car is a car. I mean,
it's true. You say that too. It's like, I made a promise to Liam, when we were in Sick Kids with him after he was born. I made a promise to him because my wife and I my wife's always been a Disney fan, Greg. And I was always like the anti-Disney, like, oh yeah, whatever. And then we went, just her and I, before we had Liam, and I was like, holy cow, like I've drinking the Kool-Aid. Like I love Disney. So when we got him home from Sick Kids, it was like, I told him, I remember in the hospital, I said, get out of here, get stable, and I'll take you to Disney. I'll figure it out.
that's
And
awesome.
we were able to, man, before COVID hit in November 2019, we were able to take him for a couple of days. And I just remember like the memories from that, to me, like on all the fancy dinners and all the crap that you can buy, right? Like I will, to my grave, remember the second he met Mickey in Town Hall Square for the first time. And he was,
That's brilliant. I mean,
like
I got chills for that.
like I will remember that, and I will say I will. And I remember the second my wife and I walked into the Magic Kingdom with him, and it was tough, man. Like going to Disney as a couple is fun because it's just you and your significant other. You get in, but like going with a kid for the first time, let alone a 1.5 year old, it's like you're like, holy shit. Like it's a lot. But I just remember walking into Town Square again as soon as you walk through the gates, and I was just like, we were both tearing up because it's like we never thought we'd have this opportunity. So
Yeah.
I get that, right? Like you say, glasses, wallet, keys, and watch, you're able to make it happen, right? So it's like making those memories are so important. Got a couple more comments for you here, Greg, too. Heather says, Gnyp, hey, thank you so much for your honesty. I love the talk between you and Arms. Great show. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Heather.
We've got another one here saying from Debbie, best to get it out there. Keeping it in only causes health issues. Great honesty spoken here. Mindfulness is best.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And somebody who's going to join the show in a couple of weeks, believe it or not, Steve Bell.
Beller!
We love
Holy
Steve.
hell!
Steve, love you guys.
Can I just say this really quickly? Steve, you still owe me a beer.
I think he owes me several as well. He owes me several as well. I honestly, like, I reached out to Beller, like, when everything happened with you guys. I reached out to Steve and I just said, and I reached out to you too, but I reached out, I said, hey man, like, if you ever need to talk, and then we just rekindled everything. And it was like, I'm glad he's doing well, and he's doing, his things with some of the people he's working with too, but it was just a lot of fun. Right. But God bless Steve. I mean, great guy. Great
you know
guy.
what?
Oh,
it's that whole thing where, well, Chris Yasinski and I, right? We lost touch for a little while, because life happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes life happens. You lose a little touch with people, things move on, but then you can reconnect. It's right. It's that's what, like, again, there, you hear, oh, thank you. But it's that whole thing where, that's what life's about, it's adventures. Like, I keep bringing my dad up about this, but my dad, like I said, my dad had these weird sayings, and I'd look at him and I'd go, I don't know where this comes from, because again, he was this science guy. Everything was black and white. 2 + 2 is 4. You can never try to say 2 + 2 could it be 6? Right? But the other thing my dad said was he hated the term "the glass is half full."
Yeah.
Or the glass is half empty.
Yeah.
He's like, why would you stop it there? Shouldn't you be happy you have a glass that you might be able to refill? And I'm like, yeah. Why look at the level? If I've got a glass in my hand, I can refill it. So maybe it has gone down, but I still have the opportunity to take it to the next level and refill it. So, when I got let go from the radio station, honest to God, the first day, like the day it happened, I went through the first 2 hours of shock where I was like, I don't know how to feel. And then I had 2 or 3 hours where I went, I think this might be a heart attack. Everything is tight, right? And then I went, all right, Bell fired probably 100 of us today. I'm not the only human being who got let go in the world today. So I could cry, whine, and kick my feet and have a temper tantrum, or I could just go, is there a bourbon in the glass?
Yeah, Chris. Good old Chris.
There might be. But it was that whole thing where I said, I'm not going to let him beat me. All right. So now, I said I was never going to get back into the restaurant bar business. Surprise. Friday night, I'm going to be behind the bar again.
I love it. And I love you, man. You got to keep being the shining example of awesome that
Right
you
back
are.
at you. But you've always been that. You've always been. I want to say it without sounding like all sappy and, like it came from a Hallmark card, but you've always been arms.
Yeah.
And are you perfect? No, you're human. Or have you always been a genuinely, and when I say decent, I hope you take that as the right, you have always been a decent soul.
Thanks, buddy.
Made the mistakes, tried to make up for the mistakes, help people out, done this, all this kind of stuff. There's not a lot of decent souls in this world, and you've found a way to balance it, between the celebrity. Because let's be honest,
dude,
Arms,
I want to be honest.
You were on the Freed's thing. I saw giant arms up on billboards.
Honestly, okay, listen. I'm gonna find that. I got that photo somewhere, but it makes my all I wanted to do, and I mean this with the utmost, is I wanted to make a good living, and I wanted to pull an Oprah in the sense that I felt like there was a better way to do news and interviews. And you can be connected to the people that, like, like, oh, you can't be emotional. You can't be emotional around them. You've got to be impartial. BS.
Yeah.
BS. I say BS. And I will die on the hill with that, man. And I just, when you say so, no, but God bless you.
No,
Anyways,
but
I was
there's
just, thank you.
yeah, but that was the thing. So many times you know what? One of the most wonderful things on TV ever that has ever been done on TV, and I tell everybody, if you want to see something absolutely beautiful, was Jon Stewart on The Daily Show talking about New York after 9/11,
100%.
talking about growing up and looking, or seeing the twin towers and then the flames and the smoke. And then he said, and then the smoke parted ways and I saw the Empire State Building and New York was still alive. And he's sobbing. I'm going to cry from it. And it was beautiful because that's realness. You, like you said, you can ask these hard hitting questions. Sometimes it's nice to know that the person asking the question has a soul as well.
Yeah, I'm never subscribed to a lot of the different things. I guess that's why I never really fit in that mold, right? So, and then I look at, be conscious of, community as well. I don't think you can't go around burning bridges and expect to be eating in the same pastures, right?
Yep.
I mean, you can't. I mean, you can be critical of other folks too, but I think that there's a push for treating people with respect. But I just I mean this. If I think of radio, I think of people who were honestly there from my own experience from day one. It's been you. So I
Thank
thought
you.
when you said, "Hey, yeah, I'll come on the show," I thought, God love you. So here's my promise to you. This Friday, I hope it goes so well that you guys continually to rock
Thank
it,
you.
and then I'd like to have you back on maybe in a couple of months, and we'll do a regular check in with Gnyp and see
I
how
would, you know
how it's
what?
going.
I would love to. I would love to. Arms. And more importantly, I would love to um, sit down and you know what? And I know you're being healthy right now.
I'm
With that
trying
being
to.
said,
I'm
I,
allowed one day a week in my thing right now, right?
then
One day where
I
I
would
can
like to be
just.
the that one day where we can sit on a patio
Yeah,
and just rehash, reconnect, hug each other, and just be like, you know what? This is what life's supposed to be.
I would love that. I would love that. I tell you what, once the next couple of weeks get going, my wife is actually going to Niagara with her mom and her sister in a couple of days. So I'm like single dad for a couple nights, which is
Nice.
which is fine.
Good
But
luck.
no, it's good. I honestly, it's one thing I've just never. It'll be a lot of work, but I love it. I'm right into it with Liam. But yeah, once a couple weeks when you guys are off and running, let's pick a date and then I'll come out to your place or whatever. I'll bring the
I
whiskey.
love it.
Sound
I love it. Bring, you know what? Bring the whole family. You know what? Liam can play with the. I've got 3 dogs that would.
Oh, you go
If he's
nuts.
got
Are you
if
kidding?
he's got any dirt or food on his face, completely cleaned.
Clean it right up.
It'd be fine.
God bless you, man. Okay,
Thank you,
so
my
I'll
friend.
I'll message you, but I just want to say on behalf of everybody in Windsor, keep doing what you're doing. Good luck on
Thank you.
Friday, and I'll circle back with you too, and keep watching the show with you and Chris. It's awesome.
Thank you, in arms. Keep and again, you know what? You've been a beacon of hope in the city.
Ah,
I say that as you know, you've always done good things and tried to help people out, and I wish more people would follow your lead.
oh, God bless you, man. I just try to, especially now with my kid, just try to say to myself, okay, how do I want this world to be when I'm not here anymore and he's on his own?
Yep.
That's it.
That's a great, yeah.
That's it. God bless you, buddy. I'll talk to
All
you
right,
soon.
my friend,
Okay.
thank you. Good night, everybody. Thank you for listening for the past 31 years.
And you know what? Let's Here's hoping to so much more with you and everything that goes on from the podcast to everything going on with your jump back into bartending and being the whiskey connoisseur. And again, everybody loves all this stuff. You got all the comments coming in here at the end of the show, so appreciate.
Ted. Yes, Gnyp 3. We are gonna do another charity beer.
I love it, and that was pretty good the first round, eh? You did really quickly before we go that you sold a ton of that, right?
We sold. Oh yeah, Chapter 2. God bless them, Chris Holt
Yep.
and Mike Bodewin and those guys. We did. We raised a ton of money for the Humane Society, and
Oh,
then the next one was for the for Canadian Mental Health Association, and we were supposed to do one last year, and we were going to do it for Pride Windsor to work with the kids in high school who aren't really sure where they stand, how they feel, to work with to get more help for the kids who are trying to figure out their own sexuality. Of course, COVID put a little wrench in that, but Gnyp 3 will come back.
love it. Keep me posted, and again, I'm gonna book you in for another show, okay, bud?
It's a date.
Love you.
Love you guys. Thank you.
See you guys. Bye bye.
And Carrie, have a great trip to Niagara Falls or Niagara region.
I appreciate that. So does the wife, Greg Gnyp, who is a great guy, just one of the best people that you could ever know. And I think the Windsor Essex area is blessed to have him in the region. So if you want to follow along, he's very active on social media. You got to check out his Facebook page. Tons of things for you to check out on there as well. And don't forget to subscribe to him and Chris Uzinski's podcast, which drops new episodes on Friday. They do the live stream, Gnyp Gnyp. And I'll post the links in the show notes when this is all said and done. Hey, speaking about changing the channel and upgrading the conversation, we are trying to do that in Windsor Essex. Here's some folks that have been on the show and some folks who listen and watch the show on a regular basis with some of the new swag that we have for the program. These are high quality, locally crafted mugs with the show logo, the Arms Bumanlag Project, and we are delivering them to you in Windsor Essex. All you have to do is check out my friends at Divinal Designs. They are local. Debbie and her team have come on board to change the channel, upgrade the conversation with positive vibes. So what we're doing is we're offering these mugs for a donation. We're partnered up with Divinal Designs, and these mugs are $20 a pop. They are microwavable, they are dishwasher safe, and the proceeds from these get split between the Windsor Essex County Humane Society and the Ronald McDonald House at Windsor Regional Hospital. So if you'd like to find out more, search Divinal Designs on Facebook, or you can message me on Facebook as well, and we'll get you a copy of those mugs as soon as possible. We also have some exciting news coming up in the next couple of weeks with the show. Like we said, Steve Bell's going to be on. We're looking forward to welcoming him to the show. And this Friday, we're back live on the air with my good friend, Melanie Coulter from the Windsor Essex County Humane Society. We're going to talk about all the different things that the Humane Society has gone through over the last year because of COVID, what's ahead for 2022 and beyond. Really exciting time for the society. And we'll talk a little bit more about Melanie's background. She's got a lot of great insight on animal welfare here in the Windsor Essex area. That's going to do it for tonight. Thanks to Greg again for being an awesome guest. And we'll see you back here live Friday night just after 8.